I am the very model of a scientist Solarian. I've studied species Turian, Asari, and Batarian. I'm quite good at genetics as a subset of biology because I am an expert, which I know is a tautology. My xenoscience studies range from urban to agrarian. I am the very model of a scientist Solarian.
One of the many things I actually have problems with most games is DLC. And well, I'm going to basically be talking about DLC here and now. I've lightly covered the subject of DLC and downloadable content and content in general in video games, but never to a huge extent. Uh, the problem I have with most DLC in gaming is that it's not true DLC. It's content that was usually cut from the game or was intended to be within the game, i.e., an unfinished fucking project. So you're essentially being paying for a full game and then being asked to pay for the content that was cut from the game, usually at the cost of the video game that you originally purchased, or additionally to the purchase of the game, and sometimes it's over the additional purchase of the said game, meaning it's $60 for the game and maybe $80 plus. It's outrageous, is what it is. Now, there are two trains of thought for DLC as far as I'm concerned. There's the Fallout 3 model, which is an awesome fucking model. Put together side missions which uh, don't contribute much to the main story, but contribute just to the gameplay, or add to the video game without actually harming the main story in any shape or form, which is the best way to actually do DLC and one I've actually played. And then there's the Mass Effect theory. Now, the Mass Effect theory follows this: we're going to add a whole bunch of DLC, and it's going to be content that should have been included in the original purchase of said game. Now, Mass Effect has only like one DLC that doesn't follow this particular rule, and it's the Citadel DLC with the Mass Effect 3, where it generally just feels unnecessary. Fun, but unnecessary. That's good DLC for that. But when you start to include things like, say, From the Ashes, which was from Mass Effect 3, where it included a Prothean coming from a whole sleeping process and being in that pod and everything, I was like, well, wait a minute. The Protheans are a big deal. I remember them constantly being referenced in Mass Effect 1, Mass Effect 2, and they're almost completely the main theme of Mass Effect 3. So, why is such a big name character being DLC? Why is it if Shadow Broker DLC for Mass Effect 2 is, if that's such a big deal, why was that not included with the game? To be fair, there was surely enough room in Mass Effect 3 for them to do DLC that I would have agreed with. There was no real fun side missions, and if they added side missions for DLC, I would have paid for that gladly. I played Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3 with all the story DLC to see if it changed the story. Instead, I feel like I got ripped for essentially paying again to really play the game. I mean, the Leviathan DLC for Mass Effect 3 actually included the backstory of the Reapers. That's main story stuff. You don't put your main content into DLC. Mass Effect 2 had two characters to which were DLC, and the video game was very, very character driven. So they actually placated a whole bunch of their main story as DLC. To be fair, if you bought Mass Effect 2 new, you basically got one of the two DLC characters for free. But aside from that, you basically had to pay for the other character. This gets my head to spin. So that means that they deliberately cut out a huge chunk of the main story simply for cash. It just seemed like a cash grab. Now, the Shadow Broker DLC, or Lair of the Shadow Broker for Mass Effect 2, it it was fun, but I just didn't see why it wasn't part of the main game. I mean, it included a main character from the original game, it included part of the subplot from the original game that was really superimposed as being important all the way through, but just kind of hidden in the background somewhere. It didn't make any sense for that not to be included with the original game. Now, if it was hauled over for DLC for limited space, then they could easily just put another disc in there with very minimal additional cost to the people buying the game. Past that, I don't understand it. I mean, the Lair of Shadow Broker was also included with the PlayStation 3 version of it, the Wii version of it, I think, if they came out with that one. But it was even given out on those consoles with the game. So why wasn't it done with Xbox? Why wasn't it done with computer versions or PC version or what have you? I would have to say financial greed. Now, the people who put out Mass Effect 2 and Mass Effect 3 is EA. EA has more than a questionable reputation as far as DLC goes, and a whole bunch of pirating control methods go, and what have you with all that crap. So, yeah, I mean, it's notorious with their DRM reputation. It's horrible. But why should I, the gamer who paid, get this, paid to have a legitimate copy, have to financially suffer just because of their greed? This is one of the things that's actually turning me off of video games is this whole mindset of, oh, we're going to put additional DLC onto there. No, I believe DLC should be, if you're going to include DLC that's actually in, special to the main story and everything, then it should be free. Okay, I'm not against the idea of doing this, as long as it doesn't charge the gamers for it. Like, say you actually can't have enough memory on your disk to actually store the full game of your product and whatever, and it has to be DLC. Fine, then actually make it free DLC so that people can download it for free and actually have the full contents of the original intended product. That does it without the expense of either the company or the gamer. I'm not unreasonable. But if you're not going to do that, then I can't see it as anything less than a financial cash grab. Now, the reason why I said that the Citadel DLC was the only good DLC for any of the Mass Effect things is because it one wasn't really mentioned a lot in the main gameplay of it. Maybe in the emails thing, but that was tied to the DLC anyway, so that's not a big problem. And two, it was never really brought up in any part of the story. Now the Leviathan DLC is brought up in the ending scene. The Shadow Broker is brought up constantly in Mass Effect 3, whether or not you played it, and so is the God, what's it called? So is the Overload DLC, and those three DLCs were tied so heavily into it. I'm like thinking, this isn't a side mission. This is basically just a mission within the game. Why am I paying for this? Ugh. It's It is little more than financial greed onto the consumer. Now, my opinions onto Lair of the Shadow Broker: fun DLC. Should have been included with the game. Same with the Leviathan, the Overlord, fun DLC, but just bad DLC because it's considered part of the main experience. DLC, ideally, should not be chopped up versions of the original fucking game to the cost of the consumer. DLC, at its heart, is additional fucking gameplay that was not originally intended for the game, or was basically an afterthought. Now, the best DLC I have ever played was Fallout 3 The Pit. Good DLC. Never once brought up in the main gameplay of Fallout 3. Not once. And it was true to the gaming style of the video game. It gave you choices, it was role playing. There was definitely a lot of combat within the gameplay, but it always felt extra. It didn't feel like it was a necessity to basically enjoying the original experience, to which was the game that you are playing. That's what DLC is. It's an extra additional content. It is not a full blown out thing of, oh, we're going to charge you this additional thing for this piece of gameplay which should have been included with the original. No, it's not. It's not the From the Ashes DLC that should have been included with the game that actually gives you full clarity of the story, of the main story. No, it's none of that crap. Alright? Now, granted, Fallout 3 has bad DLC as well, but it's not bad in that sense. For example, the Mothership Zeta DLC is completely terrible. But it is terrible because of its gameplay aspects. It is not terrible because it actually includes anything for the main story into the game. I just feel like I'm the only one that fucking understands this. So, oh, these stupid people. Downloadable content, my ass. It should be additional content, not downloadable content, because that is completely vague and it is dishonest to the person to whom is actually purchasing the DLC. I'm basically to the point where I'm saying only purchase DLC for Minecraft. Alright, you know what you're getting. You're getting skins, you're getting layovers, you're getting ways to reformat the gameplay to look like different games and stuff like that. That is far more honest than anything that EA has ever done, or Ubisoft, or however you want to pronounce that. DRM, DLC, it's just financially greedy. That's all it has to. That's all it really is. And it is fucking ironic that all these people to whom are claiming poverty within the video game industry and saying that the DLC is completely necessary, that the on-disc DLC is completely necessary, are the major corporations. Okay? I mean, hell, I've even seen Konami do the same goddamn thing. It's disingenuous is what it is. Now, I'm not saying I don't like Mass Effect. I really do like Mass Effect. I love Mass Effect 1 and 2. Mass Effect 3 was a steaming pile of dog shit until after I paid for the DLC. And the reason why I say that is because, not just because of the ending, but because they actually linked so much of the DLC, so much of it, to the actual main story. I wouldn't have minded the Lair of the Shadow Broker DLC if it wasn't structured the way it was, of when the main character is becoming the new Shadow Broker at the end of the DLC. I mean, if it had been anyone else, if they had actually made Pharaon the new Shadow Broker in the DLC, I probably wouldn't be as upset about it, because that is really a side character, background noise. You may have heard of Pharaon through maybe an email or something, and the only time I even got that email from him is when I actually played through Mass Effect 3, and having played through the DLC of Lair of the Shadow Broker, I wouldn't have minded that so much. That would have been a more natural, progressive way to actually go about it. No, no. Your main character is actually going. One of the main characters is going to be Lair, going to be the new Shadow Broker, and yeah, we're going to screw you over for money. And here's the other thing I don't like: Mass Effect 3 actively penalizes you for not playing the DLC, or at the very least not downloading any of it, because the war assessment thing, or the progression bar that says, oh, you gotta progress this much, unless you do, Shepard actually dies, or the Earth explodes, or whatever. You're penalizing me for not playing DLC. I've never been penalized for not playing DLC in Fallout 3. Nor, I mean, yes, I actually did get bonuses from playing the DLC. I got weapons from it. So, aside from that, if you don't play the DLC for Fallout 3, or don't download it for Fallout 3, there's not a huge cost to the gameplay. Making DLC or DRM that actually makes a huge cost to the gameplay, either financially or substantially, to which is the DLC found in Mass Effect 2 and Mass Effect 3, is unappealing. Now, I'm not speaking as anyone that works for the companies, because I don't, but it is completely unappealing. It's unappealing to know that there's a huge portion of the game to which was originally meant for the game, or included within the story, that I'm actually being kept a wall from simply because there's additional fees labeled onto it. I mean, if you're going to do that stupid bullshit, at least do it wholeheartedly, and make your own full, like, director's cut of it. I mean, fuck, Fallout at least did that. and still, Bethesda did not pull this huge crap that BioWare did. I have never played any fucking DLC from Bethesda and felt, yep, that felt like part of the main experience. Never had that. Never once had that experience. I've played the DLC and had one or two thoughts from Bethesda. I basically played their DLC and basically had the thought, like, either, yep, I could have gone without that, which was a very small portion of the DLC, or I actually felt that while playing the DLC, I was like, yeah, that felt like it was worth the extra money. Never quite had that last one with BioWare. It didn't feel like it. Instead, I felt like, well, that should have been with the original game. That is the opinion I've had with almost all the DLC from BioWare. It just did not make any huge contribution to the actual game. The ironic thing is that there was plenty of room for DLC in Mass Effect 3. Arguably some in Mass Effect 2. There weren't very many side missions in Mass Effect 2. Okay? I mean, there were some. There were some legitimate side missions that did not feel like, oh, you're going to scan for this planet, you're going to scan for that planet, you're going to pay for probes and fuel. I mean, there were actual side missions with Mass Effect 2, so I can defend it. Now, could they have added more? Surely, yes, but they didn't really need to. Now, Mass Effect 3, there was definitely room for DLC, definitely room for side missions. And when I play an RPG, and the rarity that I play an RPG, I'm almost always aching for more side missions. Mass Effect 3 had a few N7 side missions, just a few. It did not feel like there was anything substantial to them. There didn't feel like there was enough of them. Now, when I'm playing a role-playing game and my first thought is side missions and there not being enough of them, chances are that's probably the problem with it. Mass Effect 3 completely lacked any meat as far as side missions are concerned. Now, they didn't, but when it came to the DLC that they did have for it, it just felt like they were taking a cookie cutter to their fucking script and saying we're using this for people that are paying, we're using this for people that are paying, because people that are paying for a product are stealing from us. Really? Really? You're gonna say that stupid bullshit? People paying for the product are stealing? And this is more or less the kind of feel I get from EA and all the other major league video game companies that want to publish AAA titles. If I could ask the entire video game industry, this one that actually publishes AAA titles, it would be this fundamental question. That being, how is it paying customers are stealing from you? Now, when you answer that particular question, come back to me. And here's another thing. People that download video games illegally, steal video games illegally, and essentially violate all these stuff and don't pay for any DLC, they usually don't have to deal with any DRM. So, by adding DLC, DRM, and all these other features into the original purchases of said games, you're giving people reason to steal from you. Get that? You're giving people reason to steal from you. Oh, so when you complain about it, it does nothing but actually warms my heart to know that your cold heart is suffering financially because of it. Oh, I don't steal from the video game industry. I pay for all my games out. I do it legitimately because of the fact that I actually feel like supporting the people to whom make the products to which I enjoy. However, that does not mean I don't understand why people actually do it. Nor do I belittle them. Instead, I applaud them. I applaud them for the reason being that they're taking advantage of people that are taking advantage of my fucking wallet. I'm not a cruel person. I'm not an unfeeling person. But I am a person who understands the fundamentals of irony. And considering the fact that these assholes that are actually making the DLC content, to which actually should be included into the original experience of said games out of a fucking disc, or on fucking disc, excuse me, just makes me happy. It makes me happy to know that other people will not take their bullshit and will essentially say, okay, this is crap, we're going to actually cost you financial money because of you being a dick. Now, you might be asking, well, why are you personally picking on Mass Effect? Why Mass Effect? Mass Effect is the perfect target for it. It's really just out there in front of everybody. Now, I normally don't try to pick on Mass Effect too much. I try to live off of it because I'm kind of too mean about it. But anytime I see news about Mass Effect, I kind of get reminded of the fact of how badly I was burned by them. Hearing about Mass Effect 4, I was like, yep, not gonna buy that game. And rather than rant and rave about Mass Effect 4 and constantly say, it's gonna be bad, it's gonna be bad, it's gonna be bad, I felt, like doing something slightly more sophisticated, doing something slightly more intelligent. That being, telling why I was mad about Mass Effect 2 and Mass Effect 3. No, I'm not going to be buying Mass Effect 4. However, if you're watching this video, then you actually grasp the concept as to why I'm not going to be purchasing it. It doesn't take any intelligence to completely smash a sequel to a game when you didn't like the predecessor or predecessors. It's not difficult to actually find people willing to do that. Oh, I'm going to troll this game because it's horrible. No, no, no. There are far more intelligent reasons to hate on Mass Effect. Now, these are just simply some to which I actually have with DLC. Now, is it tied to Mass Effect? Absolutely. They are absolutely tied to Mass Effect. Are they the only games that include DLC like this? No. Wish they were, but they're not. DLC lately has actually been turned into a huge cash grab within all video games. Virtually every game that's actually filtered down has some form of DLC. DLC, in my opinion, not every game should have DLC. Now, that should be repeated over and over and over. Not every game should have DLC. You know? DLC, in my opinion, has lost all meaning. Okay? It used to be downloadable content, now it's downloadable currency as far as they're concerned. My currency. Your currency. The actions to which these video game publishers are actually doing towards the gamers is completely unethical. The ethics of what they're doing should actually be seriously reviewed by the Better Business Bureau. And if not them, then certainly some legal or financial equivalent that actually looks at the ethics of business transactions. Now, these problems have been actually better stated by more intelligent people in the past before me. However, I bring them to the forefront for the reason being that they are a necessity into the arrogance and plagiarisms to which that they are openly claiming. That being that they're doing all this to the plagiarisms of the copyright that is being infringed upon either by YouTubers, which is knowingly bullshit since Let's Players actually help sell their product, people copying and downloading their products as a result of the DRM instead of to make sure that they can get some kind of product for free. I mean, let's look at it, demographically speaking. If people are actually going to steal your product, well then you can take that on an individual basis and prosecute them individually for it and actually report it and saying this is what they're doing and we're going to prosecute for them. The whole infringement of copyright is a movement that should be left towards the courtroom, not towards the consumer. Yet, they're actually moving all this crap towards the punishment of consumers rather than to the courtrooms. Okay, let's say for the sake of argument, it is a horrible, horrible crime. Their copyright is being completely infringed upon. People are copying their product without any level of permission or purchase. Okay, let's look at that separately for a few seconds. If that's the case, then they should A, follow a police report, B, file charges, and C, contact their attorneys. If it's a crime, then it should be treated like a crime and contacted with the law enforcement. It's that simple. And then afterwards it should be reported to the news and reported to anyone that will actually report this stuff publicly and put it out in the forefront, like this person actually infringed upon our copyright and we actually sued them for it, or we pressed charges for them for it. At what point did I mention anything about putting on any bullshit DRM, DLC, or anything of that while stating that? If you're paying attention, you will know I didn't say that fucking once. Yet, that is what they're doing. And the real focus is not piracy. It is not theft. Because if that were the real focus, we would see reports of law enforcement and people actually being sued or put into prison for reasons of copyright infringement. For the most part, that does not happen. It is actually very rare to see anyone personally prosecuted for any level of copyright infringement or any infringement to which their copyright was actually distributed towards a general public. That is rarely seen. And that's rarely seen because that's rarely an issue. Instead, they decide to make it a social issue instead of a legal issue. And let me tell you this. Well, let me ask you this rather. How is it suddenly my responsibility simply because I'm paying for a product to actually make sure everyone else is paying for said product and following all the rules? Since when was it the general public's responsibility to actually make sure that people are obeying the law outside of people within law enforcement? I don't remember taking that oath. I don't remember swearing that oath. Not once do I remember doing anything of that nature. I'm no attorney, so I have no right to defend someone to whom actually gets into that kind of legal dispute. Nor am I a prosecutor, so I'm not in terms to actually persecute anyone for any crimes. Trying to pinpoint where my responsibility is. Somehow paying $60 for a product actually makes me financially responsible for anyone actually committing any act of piracy onto the product to which I've purchased. Something does stink around here. And it's not the game, it's not me. I know, it's the bullshit I'm being fed. Yes, this bullshit stinks. It smells like bullshit. Hence the fucking name. Such funny irony this is. That somehow, magically, just because I spend $60, I don't have a fucking badge on my shirt. Interesting. Isn't this an interesting notion? Now back to reality for 5 fucking seconds. Yeah, this does piss me off. I'm by no means any way legally responsible to actually make sure everyone is obeying the law outside of myself. I'm completely responsible for any illegal doings that I may do. I know that as a citizen. I know that if I commit a crime, I'm completely liable for it. But I don't have any liability for anybody else. You know, I mean, I'm sane enough to actually understand that. I understand that as an individual. So why is it that when I actually pay $60 for a product, I essentially get treated as a criminal? Wow. And that's really where the idea of Day 1 DLC is coming from and all this other crap. Some people will say, oh, it's because used games don't actually make used games. Money doesn't go to the company for used games. If you use that as an excuse, take it up with GameStop. For one, I may purchase something at GameStop. However, I am not breaking the law at that point. Nor am I breaking copyright. The used market has existed since VHS. You have a problem with the used market and the fact that you believe that the used market is taking advantage of your copyright, take that up with a court case. Take that up with GameStop. But I do not own any stock within GameStop. I don't work within the company of GameStop. Therefore, I have no liability within the store. Again, as a customer, I don't have any liability over the crimes to which is essentially being claimed to be have been committed by said company. Huh. Still looking for that responsibility. Let me see. So I don't have any responsibility over the actions of others. So that just defies logic. I don't have the responsibility of other companies to which I do not have any stake in. For the same reason it defies logic. Huh. Still looking where that fault thing actually lies onto. So, I mean, if I download something illegally, then I would surely be liable for it. But if someone else downloads something illegally, I have no liability for it. Well, there is an interesting term here to which I'm looking for. Let me see what it is. Oh wait, I know. Witch hunt. Essentially, the general public is basically a blank patsy for any crimes to which are being committed, including, but not limited to, the sale and purchase of used games. EA is hardly the only company that actually does this. I mean, Capcom is guilty of it. Oh man. You could make a series off of the crap that Capcom has done. I digress though. The original purchases is not theft. Okay, the company to which made money off of that. The used market. Now, the ethics of the used market is questionable, but it's not illegal. You want to blame someone for the constant sale of used products? Well, don't look at the people to whom purchase them. Look at the people to whom sell them. Now, the video game industry is probably keeps on saying, oh, we're going to move away from discs, we're going to move away from discs. Maybe, eventually, once you get rid of the older people like myself that do like the idea of having a physical media in their hands instead of taking up their entire hard drive for a single game. Yeah. Once hard drive space becomes so huge to which you don't actually have a concern anymore as to the space to which you're actually having your D.L.C, your games, and what have you. Yeah. Once you solve the technical issues, and once you actually get rid of the people that actually like having physical media, I might see that. Probably won't see it within my lifetime, but maybe one day. Maybe one day. Does that mean that... But here's the thing. So long as there's a market for physical products, you're going to want people to have whole physical products. Now, I'm not saying that I'm against the idea of DLC. If you have DLC to which is additional content to your full product, yes. I hesitate to use this example because it comes off of a video game series that I despise, but it is a good example. I despise the Elder Scrolls series for reasons of my own personal taste, but from what I've seen and heard, they shipped the Elder Scrolls as a whole product. Again, this is a product by Bethesda that also made Fallout 3, and so they have kind of a history of making really good DLC. All of their DLC is additional content that does not affect the main experience from what I understand. I wouldn't know, I don't have first-hand experience, but from what I hear, that is pretty much the experience. It doesn't shock me, though. If video game companies want me to get fully interested into their additional content, then don't tie it into the main content. Now, there's some DLC I simply don't like. Weapon packs, armor packs, skin packs. I see it as unnecessary. Now, while I don't personally, it's not up to my personal taste, at the same time, I can't say that I have the same ethical issues over that. Have I paid for such DLC? Yeah, because I've paid for skin packs for Minecraft, so I have no problem with it ethically. The ethics of it are completely genuinely good. Now, the pricing of it is debatable. Minecraft actually has the best prices, but for other companies that are doing mostly something very similar, like EA with Dead Space. Now, from what I understand, EA has done a lot of horrible DRM stuff with Dead Space. Now, I've never played the game. Now, I'm not against the idea of EA with Dead Space having skin packs with different rigs and stuff like that, from what I understand, but the issue with them is pricing. Now, I believe that when you actually overprice something, that the market should actually sort it out within people either purchasing it or not purchasing it. Now, do I have issues with them making skins, or anyone making skins or weapons downloadable? No. Maybe as far as download space on a hard drive is, and maybe the pricing, but ethically, it's a sound business model. Okay, give people more options to optimize or customize their characters or their vehicles, and put a small price tag on it, and a fair price tag on it. I don't have any general concern over it. Now, pricing to which would be overpriced for it would be marketable to the pricing of other skins of the sort. Now, is it my personal taste to do something of that nature? No, not really. Not a big fan of it. But I have no objections over that. That, to me, is not unethical, until you get into an area of overpricing. Now, when you get into an area overpricing to which most, not all, most DLC for EA can actually be accounted for, if not all, that's when you have ethical concerns, and that's when you're going to have people deciding over the market of what they want to pay for. So not all DLC in my mind is completely evil, nor is the idea of DLC evil in my mind from the concept of it. The first time I heard about it was way back when Guitar Hero was a vibrant series. Now, I love the idea of it, because then they could actually put out more Guitar Hero songs and everything, and include their huge library out of it, without including a new Guitar Hero every year. It seemed like a good idea on paper. On paper, awesome idea. Awesome. So, my bashing of it isn't from someone that hates the concept of DLC. Now, what companies have done with DLC and DRM, I think is completely fucking atrocious, and they should actually be completely decapitated and their head put up on a spike for display. Hopefully for E3. Now, that's my opinion. But that's that's because I have issues with what they've done with DLC. They've taken a fundamentally core sound business idea within gaming, completely sound, and made it a steaming pile of shit. it's not every day when you actually get to point out a steaming pile of shit for what it truly is turned into, but that is the situation. It's like that for a lot of things that are connected to gaming, not just DLC. I mean, the core idea of DLC would have had fundamentally positive results, extending the life of video games, making extending the interest of someone's video game without truly having to set out too many more sequels, prequels, and trilogies. Where people could essentially keep working on the game without having to put out a new game. Now, this is somewhat experienced with anyone that's played Minecraft. Minecraft, in my opinion, best idea for DLC ever. Now, could they sell this stuff for DLC in Minecraft? In my opinion, they should, but they do it for free. Now, in my opinion, that's really fucking classy of them. I don't expect most people to whom that are actually interested in the financial businesses of their product to really do that much. What has actually gone through that particular company with the whole Minecraft stuff, it's really decent of them. I I would expect them to stop that service at any time, but they're really loyal to their fan base. But you take that back and compare that to anyone that actually is in a AAA industry. And that's the funny thing, is that I'm comparing Minecraft, of all things, that actually be the most decent and most have the best business model for DLC, and yet, when it comes up to a horrible example, I have to pull out something from a AAA title. It's disgraceful that those that actually pull themselves up as being forward and being some of the best immersive gaming experience has the worst ethics within the whole industry. It's atrocious. Do I like Mass Effect? Now that I played the DLC, I love Mass Effect. But the ethics of it is just the ethics of what they did with the content. It is unforgiving. I will never buy another product from fucking BioWare. Uh, I kind of wish I didn't purchase the DLC. By having done that, it has opened my eyes to which would is the unethical treatment to which they've actually put onto the game players and people who have purchased their product. I cannot knowingly actually say that the people to whom steal their product is in the wrong. Committing a crime, maybe. Doing something illegal, definitely, to some people's definition of it. Doing something that is fundamentally immoral, no. People that violate the copyright infringement, violate the copyright laws that are actually enthused to any kind of actions to which BioWare or any company that actually follows the business product of BioWare or EA are not immoral. Legally unsound, maybe, but not immoral, not unethical. And that's a little distinction that people need to start making. Not all illegal methods and actions, not all of them are immoral. It's a fine line, I understand, and I understand that you can't actually attune that to most things, but the problem is that the ethics of some of the laws that are on the books are fundamentally immoral, okay? Now, that connects to many different aspects of law, and can be argued within courtrooms from here till doomsday. But the problem is that there is certainly definitely an overlap to unethical behavior and legal behavior, as the two don't always mesh correctly. Is there stuff that's illegal and immoral? Yeah. Is there stuff that's completely legal and immoral? Yes. You normally see this in Wall Street. Okay, not the movie, the actual location. fact I had to make that distinction is really fucking annoying. But that is the situation to which we've created for ourselves, is making it where we're arguing over the morality of action and inaction. The immorality within the whole industry of video gaming is apparent, and I'm sticking it to the financial immorality, not the content of the games. Hell, if it's over content, then I would have to say that it's too tame at times. Concerning the controversy within Mass Effect 1, that is kind of a funny statement. Now, I don't have any problems with sex, drugs, or violence within the video games. What I have is problems with people getting financially screwed over that are paying $60 per game, that are paying like $200 plus per system. I have to deal with like the outrageous prices of a new TV so that it is somewhat compatible with their new video game system. These are immoral things, and I can understand why people steal from companies that are requiring people to actually upgrade their hardware so significantly. Do I blame them? No. No one should. If anything, the only people to whom I've actually blamed for all the copyright infringement, all the piracy, and all the things that have led to DRM is not the people that actually steal or infringe on copyright. And I want to make it known it's not theft, it's infringement of copyright. The people that actually infringe on the copyright is that majority of the time they're being pushed there. They're being pushed there by these major companies. There's two arms of the whole video gaming thing. There are the people that make the games, and then there are people that sell the games. Now, a certain amount of this is going to be corporate, going to come up from those people that actually need to make a buck off of the finances. I can understand that portion of it, but you're not going to get loyal customers by screwing over the people to whom actually pay for it legally. Okay? Now, I also don't like this whole stuff of, oh, you can download X amount of content for free off of this little pass here. Let me tell you, that crap is annoying. It's not annoying just for me. Think about people that have reading disabilities, dyslexia, or people that are illiterate. You know? I mean, granted, they probably should learn how to read, but those people do exist out there. So telling them to actually download something with a huge amount of letters onto this whole thing, or someone that's dyslexic, or even forbid someone that has visual problems, are going to have serious problems downloading said material that you've given them a little pass or a little slip for. It is unkind to people that actually have some level of disability. And before you say anything, I'm willing to bet that there's this percentage of the people that actually haven't played the downloadable content, even if they got it for free, because of some disability that they've had. It's really cold. It's a cold way to treat your loyal fan base. They're going to lose customers. Any company that actually transgresses onto their paying customers through these unethical treatments are going to lose customers. It's not going to be today. It may not even be tomorrow. But a day will come when people that actually use these actions against their paying customers will see their finances and their stock just simply dry up. People say that an oversaturation of the video gaming market is going to cause another video gaming crash. That's what caused the last crash, but that's not what's going to cause the next one if we have another one. It's not. It's going to be the unethical treatment and piss poor treatment of the video game industry onto its clientele, that being gamers. Do I want it to happen? No, but I can see it happening a mile away. I'm buying less games because of it. I actively look for video games that are of my interest that don't have DLC, DRM, online multiplayer. These are features to which are annoying to me. Now, I'm not a big RPG guy. Funny enough, as much as I bitch and complain about it, I'm not a big RPG guy. The only RPGs I've really played were mainly Mass Effect and Fallout. Granted, Fallout is one of my favorite games. For the most part, I like shooting games. I like games like Bioshock. I like games like Call of Duty. You know, I'm mostly a first-person shooter-ish kind of player. I mean, I may stray from it if I see a game to which I think is fun. You know, I mean, I definitely have my Grand Theft Auto games. I mean, I don't stay strictly to that one genre of gaming. I mean, after all, I have like Shadow of the Colossus, Ico, Metroid Last Light from Deep Silver Games, and whoever else produced it. I also have like Ghostbusters, Atari from Atari's. It's I play a pretty much well-rounded selection of gaming. So with that kind of background, I see DLC, namely coming from DLC that shouldn't be in parts of the game from many different genres, not just things like RPGs. It's my main concern is that they include all these main story-driven DLCs. It's not a good sign for the gaming community as a whole. Now the DRM end of it, isn't any better. It's in fact a lot worse. Always on connections and requiring always on systems and stuff like this. The Xbox One itself saw a hell of a lot of flack for its always on DRM. So, and for an understandable amount. There are people that don't have reliable internet connections, or at the very least don't want to deal with an internet connection. I myself am mostly an offline gamer. Very rarely do I even connect my video game systems to the internet, with the exception of maybe for Grand Theft Auto 5. And even then, I usually go into a single player party so I can build my garage and not have to deal with people blowing up my car. So, for the most part, I would actually say that the whole on part of all dealing with people online is pretty much a fruitless endeavor, for the purpose being that most people just aren't civil online. So that makes any always online DRM more of a headache and a hassle rather than anything else. Not to mention with constant and consistent updates for either the system itself or the individual game to which is actually plugged into the system. So it's not just the DLC, but the DLC is a huge part of it. And the DLC and DRM are all coming from a similar frame of mind of people trying to protect themselves from essentially copyright infringement. It's not theft. I just want to reiterate this. It's a theft. Theft is when you actually steal a physical, tangible item from someone else. That is theft. You're dealing with copyright infringement. Alright, essentially people making copies or viewing materials to which they have neither bought the permissions or have not purchased at all in terms of fees, or have not actually gotten permissions or rights or claims to actually make a copy thereof. Making such claims as to whether or not it's theft as either a bold-faced lie or a huge exaggeration on part to which whoever is claiming to be a victim. And here's a little food for thought, is that most people that make the claims to which are actually being copyrights or having infringed upon are not the people to whom is actually making said art. They're not the people that are making the games. They're not the people that are making the music. They are not the people to whom are usually making the content. They're usually the corporate conglomerates to which actually hold the copyrights to which the art is. So those people that are actually claiming that copyright infringement actually hurts artists are usually lying to themselves. Very rarely is that the case, especially when you're dealing with major corporations. And more times often than not, the people to whom actually invest into the video game industry are actually people that are interested into the movie industry and don't know a damn thing about it. So, no. It's not always a good thing. It's not people knowing what the fuck they're talking about. It's mostly just people talking out of their ass. I've never been able to understand about this. So people interested in the movie industry are really screwing over the video game industry. And here's the thing, it's a piss poor model anyway, because the movie industry is essentially dying or dead anyway. There's no originality in it, it's completely stagnant, and on top of that it's taking all of its viewing sources from second-hand or third-hand material, such as books, comic books, sequels, prequels, and trilogies, and so forth. Stagnating the media as much as it has within the movie industry is basically killing it off. I've seen a similar stagnation within video game industry. And doing that by using DRM, D.L.C is not the intended purpose thereof of the original D.L.C purpose. Now, D.L.C was simply meant to actually add material to which couldn't fit onto the disc. I'm not against that as an idea, as a perception. I'm against the actual way to which it's been used. It's been used in a completely unethical manner, to which is used to actually become sort of a vacuum cleaner onto the wallets of the paying customers. I would go so far as to say that the average video gamer is being used and abused by to whomever is actually running these corporations or corporation. I mean, it's not all just one corporation to which is doing this. EA is getting a lot of flack, rightly so, from a lot of different directions. But there's tons of examples of companies actually doing unethical things to people. Sometimes it's not always video games. Now, granted, this is a first world issue, but when you kind of look at it in the abstract and kind of realize what's going on within one company, you kind of get the feeling that if this is what's going on within this particular industry, what's going on with the other industries, the ones that aren't entertainment. I can guarantee you if there's questionable ethics actually going on between just mere entertainment industries, I can guarantee you this, that the questions of ethics to which the other companies are actually doing their fair share of business with are actually doing either shady deals or at the very least are doing something to which could actually harm someone. It's important to look at cases like what the video game industry is doing because it gives you a hint of what someone else is doing. It's usually a case of, what can I get away with? You know? Can I get away with launching an incomplete product? Can I get away with launching a non-functioning product? Can I get away with launching a defective product? How much is this going to cost me in lawsuits? How much bad PR is this going to cost me? It's stuff like that. People think in those terms. It's never, oh, I'm doing this for the audience, I'm doing that for the audience. And when you hear people actually saying things of that nature, you know that they probably have their hand in your pocket, especially for video games. It's not just about any one particular thing. It's about a whole lot of business practices that are tied in together. And when you start mixing business practices and art, it it gets kind of messy, and there's a lot of gray line within businesses. There's not a lot of gray line within art. And when those two worlds collide, well, yeah, shit happens at that point. You're basically getting the scum of the earth to actually mingle with the most creative minds in the world. I don't think much of people of the business world, obviously, but I'll be damned if they don't actually deliver on what I actually call questionable decisions and actions. So, but because of the actions of maybe a few greedy people within the industry, a whole large amount of people are actually going to suffer. Until more people actually make more videos like this that actually point out the error of their ways and shit like that, I don't see anyone actually fixing the video game industry as a whole, or any industry as a whole. And unfortunately, most gamers are completely content within whatever content is actually being given. And if they're not, they start to yell and scream at the people like, fix this, fix that. Yeah, I understand that there's justified outrage and unjustified outrage, but always showing constant and consistent outrage is making it difficult for any legitimate complaints to actually be taken seriously. I don't expect this video to be taken seriously in any shape or form, for the reason being that there's already too many people telling you within their means that this is what's wrong with the gaming industry, that's what's wrong with the gaming industry. But I can actually point and tell you what's wrong with the gaming industry. What's wrong with the gaming industry as a whole is questionable and unethical business actions and motivations. It's simply their formula for a business platform to which is actually destroying the industry. D.L.C. to a large extent, to a huge extent, is a symptom. And what it really is, it's a symptom of this larger problem, that being of all the unethical actions to which the CEOs and people who run these corporations have actually done. These actions aren't to blame, not the industry itself, and that needs to be recognized.
Fatality!
In all honesty, the only thing that's going to change with this is not much. However, there is a way to kind of curb the behavior of the corporations. It is something that we as gamers should actually do more and more frequently, and that is to buy less and less and less DLC. Now, it should be a cold and calculated decision anytime someone actually does purchase DLC, because it kind of sends the wrong message. It's kind of like saying, oh, we'll put up with this shit. We'll put up with more. We'll put up with more. I'm not exactly saying that let the buyer be aware kind of statement should be paying attention to. However, I am stating that people should be more aware of where their money goes to and which corporations they're spending their money on. Like, does this video game company have a good reputation with DLC? Do they use it for actual additional content, or are they just using it as a way to keep their main content of their product hostage in a sense, a la the Mass Effect theory stratum, to which I actually posed as my own theorem for the way in which DLC would be used as a way to unethically use it to withhold content. Bearing that in mind, if it follows that kind of way of using DLC, then by no means should you purchase it. I'm not saying that the buyer beware should hold a whole lot of sway one way or the other, but at the end of the day, it's the only real weapon that unsatisfied customers are actually going to be able to wield. It's not going to be pretty, it's not going to be neat and nice, and it's probably going to have a lot of negative effects. But I am not screaming on the top of my lungs, boycott, boycott, boycott. I'm saying vote with your wallet and actually be careful of where you spend your money. Does that mean I demean and despise DLC? No. It means at best you could say I'm conflicted about it. You know, is this DLC actually additional content? Is this DLC main content? I mean, you wouldn't watch a movie if they essentially cut out half of it and then actually said, okay, we'll pay for the movie. We can actually give you the rest of the movie if you pay us additional money. You don't see too many people actually doing that outside of maybe director's cut. And even then, it's very rarely. Most people don't even go for the director's cut of most movies. I mean, if someone actually took a machete and cut your novel in half that you paid for, like brand new, and actually said, okay, if you pay an additional $15, we'll give you the rest of the book, you wouldn't stand for that. Most people would never stand for that. So why are we standing for that kind of treatment within the industry of video games? To me, this is an outrageous form of treatment. It's disrespectful, to say the least. And I think that word needs to be paid more attention to. Respect. The people to whom pay for the video games with full legitimacy, either it being download or actual stores or whatever, are being disrespected by companies like Ubisoft, fucking EA, you name it, it's out there. I mean, even Square Enix has done it to a huge, annoying degree. Why do we as consumers put up with it? Well, I'll tell you why. We put up with it because we keep thinking that what we want is major league games, like the most awesome of games. For quality control, I would have to say the best games are probably AAA. Now, for ones that don't screw over their customers, I have to say that the best games are probably people within the smaller video game markets, those in the indie markets. I've never played an indie game and actually felt financially fucked over. I can't speak for anyone else, but that's just been my experience. I've played indie games where I didn't like the game, but that's a completely different complaint. And it's a satisfaction complaint. It's not a complaint about the quality of the product or the ethics of the product thereby. And it makes even less sense since most of the video games to which actually are out nowadays have major sponsors like Subway, fucking Mountain Dew for Halo. And then they ask for huge DLC map packs from the same people who's seen all of those commercials and know the product. Dishonesty, disrespect. It's just so blatant that it's beyond being obvious. It's more of the lines of saying, well, we know you're going to buy this crap, so you know what, we're going to charge you more for it. I don't think gamers that pay for their merchandise need to be treated this way. It's not even being treated like children. It's more like It's more like abuse. Not like physical abuse, more like psychological abuse. Psychological abuse on the terms of a paying customer. It's like you're being condemned essentially just for buying the product. Oh, you bought this product and you want it full? Well, fuck you. Yeah, that kind of shit. It's cold-hearted. And this is coming from someone that, for the most part, is unsympathetic. I'm a very unsympathetic person. But then again, I think that the companies are doing wrong by both the people to whom pay for the products and for the people to whom create the products. I've heard many a time from many of the interviews that the people to whom make these video games just want the full product to be reached in the hands of the people that enjoy the product. Sadly, that just does not happen the majority of the time. Instead, we get to hear about how the DRM is making the video game completely unable to play, or how Sims is essentially unable to play, or how Diablo is not available to the people to whom have purchased it because all the servers to the game have crashed. The way people are being treated isn't right. It's not right. And most gamers know it. Most gamers know it. Some gamers are a little bit too loud about it. But unfortunately, no one's doing much about it. Now, the most power I actually have is to kindly point out to what these people are doing and how it's affecting the video game industry as a whole in a negative light. Until we actually get the attention of the video game industry as a whole to actually kind of stand up and take notice that cutting portions of the game out of the game and then using it for DLC packs later is fundamentally detrimental to the health of the industry as a whole, we're not really going to get anywhere with this whole attitude. Because until these people start to notice that it actually is going to hurt them financially, they're not going to do anything about it. Which is why I actually suggest attacking these people with their wallets. It's the only real legal way to actually go about it. I mean, you could sue them, but you're not going to get anywhere with that. You might get some attention for a week or two, maybe 3 at most. But eventually it'll cool down, it'll go away, and, you won't hear from it again. But if their stocks start to plummet, I can guarantee you this, you're going to be hearing shit from their investors. I would go so far as to say that that's already started to happen to a degree. But not to any lasting degree, not to any degree to which would have any real effect. It's now only starting to slowly take effect into this. I mean, EA for years has actually been called out for being one of the worst companies, and is the first company to win the worst company of the world award at least twice. It's the first consecutive winner of that award. And in their arrogance, they actually said, we don't think this actually says anything about the quality of our company. Oh, EA. EA. My little train wreck. The only reason why I like to talk about EA is because I like watching a car crash. I do. One of my favorite shows is World's Worst Car Crashes. They don't run anymore, just mostly in reruns or whatever. It's so rare that you actually get forewarning of a flaming ball of fire. It's exactly what EA is. It is encompassing to actually see this level of incompetence up close and personal. I mean, that Golden Turd Award they keep winning every year. I will be shocked and surprised if they don't win it this year as well. But I digress yet again. People to whom actually follow the business practices and ethics of companies that win Golden Pool Awards for more than one consecutive year, it's going to be fascinating. I would bet that they're probably going to win that award yet again. But they're not the only company to whom would actually be rewarding with getting that award. Treating your customers as though they're criminals is unethical and it's bad business. And in the end, it should, not saying it will, but it should cost them business. I've seen many cases where companies do horrible, horrible things in it, because I just see it in the news. It's just that frequent. And the only way to actually really tell a company, fuck off, is really to hurt them in their wallet. I can't think of any other way. I just wish more people would be realistic about what they actually spend their money on within video games. And not just video games, but a lot of other things. But this is probably one of the most petty complaints you can actually have, but still, when you use video games as a way to kind of relax and everything else, you don't need it causing you stress. You don't. Who does? Life sucks. Which is why dealing with major headaches like this is... it's annoying to say the least. It won't be the last time either. I know eventually I'm gonna run into another company, another video game company that does such underhanded bullshit. People need to learn. Just learn how to be halfway decent to each other, instead of trying to screw each other over for their money. I'm not saying I'm perfect, I'm not. But god damn. Consistently screwing people over with a straight face, winning Golden Poo Awards fucking twice, and still be so arrogant to say that you don't see the error of your ways and see where people call fault within your own practices. What do you say to something like that? What do you say to arrogance like that? Most people kind of laugh it off or shrug it off, and it just irritates me. I was kind of hoping that BioWare would split from EA, or at the very least they would kill the Mass Effect series. As what's happened to it is completely asinine. It's terrible. Then again, this is not going to be limited to just this corporation. Other corporations are going to look at the success of the Mass Effect series and say, oh look, they did something really scummy. They got away with it. Nobody noticed. Maybe we should follow their business model. So when you pay for DLC, you're not really supporting the artist. You're actually supporting all these really unethical actions that CEOs and managers and business consultants have actually done to the company. Am I happy about all this bullshit that's been going on? Obviously no. Corporations are what they are. For the most part, I hold negative opinion about them and low expectations. Now, if video game industry really wants to get as a whole of what they really need to do, they need to shed themselves of these corporate publishers. Because the corporate publishers are really the ones that have nefarious ethics. They're mode of thinking, their way of actually doing procedural business, holding business as usual, just doesn't cut it. I mean, they like to mostly hold and hide behind deep, dark shadows and hold a stamp of approval or a stamp of denial over the worst ideas. The best ideas always get denied, and the worst ideas always get approved. Really not that far from a government, for the most part. Or any government, really. Just look at all the shitty decisions that they could make and all the good decisions they could make, and they'll just make shitty decisions 10 times out of 10. When greed and finances are your only motivations for actually getting into any level of art or creative workings, you're not going to get the best results. Instead, you're going to get corruption, and you're going to get people essentially trying to control art in the most greedy and financially corrupt of ways. Now, that alone is not limited to just video games, but it includes video games. The message that I'm trying to send out to people is try and be wary of what you purchase and why you purchase it. I don't view D.L.C as evil. I don't view DRM as essentially evil. I view the way that it's being implemented as wrong. I think there's a distinction there that a lot of people aren't making. That some things that are business practices or ways of actually protecting yourselves for companies or corporations is fundamentally inept or inadequate for actually dealing with it on either an ethical level or on a moral level. And I'm not talking about religious morals. I'm talking about morality as in forms of making a right decision or a wrong decision, one that will potentially anger someone. Now, granted, to some degree, there are some people out there that will never be satisfied. Not talking about them. Some people will never be satisfied with anything to which you actually do to actually fix a problem or even acknowledge it. I know that. I know that. There are some people that are saying that there's no way for BioWare or EA to fix their problems. I would have to actually go so far as to disagree with that. If BioWare or EA wanted to fix their problems, the only simple thing they could actually do to fix all these problems is thus: to stop it. Got that? Stop all the unethical treatment of the content to which you're actually creating or having other people create. Stop financially monetizing video games to which are already full-priced video games to begin with. Essentially AAA titles getting a whole bunch of people that put money into it that's already been paid for. Stop with the free-to-play model for games that are already $60. It's terrible fucking people. Sad thing is, the world is no shortage of people that think within this realm of morality or realm of ethics. I don't view this problem going away so much, but what I would actually prefer is recognition. Not so much from the gamers. Gamers know about it. Not so much from the people that report about it, because the reporters know about it, the gamers know about it. It seems like the only people that don't know about it are corporations. Excuse me. You take corporations that are essentially doing these kinds of actions, and they're doing it over and over and over and over repeatedly. They're not going to get the message. That's who this is for. If you work for one of these corporations, please just bring them this video and actually show them this and say, this is where we're fucking up. This is where we're screwing up. This is where we're losing customers. This is where we're losing money. This is why our stocks are going down. Okay? It's not that we're losing money off of copyright infringement. It's not that people are illegally copying the video game. And it's not even people stealing the video game off of the shelves. We're losing money because of because of the programs to which we're actually connected to. The DRM, the one-day DLC, the cutting of main content for DLC purposes. It's essentially taking a machete to the whole video game content, or to any content to which we're producing. It's us literally smashing our hand and then expecting that hand to actually be able to carry heavy shit so that we can make money. It's really crippling our own finances. If you work for them, tell them that. Tell them that we're actually damaging our own financial records by actually being complete dunces. But I suspect no one working for a company or industry is actually going to acknowledge that they're actually fucking up in any shape or form because they don't want to get fired. Financial greed. It's not just for the CEOs, it's also for the employees. I wouldn't say that they're majorly to blame in any shape or form. But in the video game industry as a whole, people are concerned about losing their jobs, so that you're going to get people that don't want to speak up to CEOs or bosses. That's true for most employment in this economy. Most employment. Yet when you have limited jobs in an industry like that, it just gets so easy to get an abusive boss, or to get a boss that takes advantage of their clientele. As they know they're working in a limited industry, and they know that they probably have tons of employees as backups, and they know that if they fire someone, that employee is unlikely to get hired by anyone. Video game studios are closing down. Guess fucking why. Smaller companies are merging so that they can actually reserve their finances and build upon their creative employees, and actually have more creative employees, and at the same time be able to save a buck so that they don't have to worry about going bankrupt. Guess why? And at the same time they actually build the stronger finances. So the corrupt corporations are merging with other corrupt corporations so that they don't go broke, because their corruption is essentially breaking them. I wouldn't say it's at the breaking point yet. There are too many video game companies that make finances and money that actually for them to go broke just yet. I'd wait until Nintendo, Microsoft, and Sony all had major competition. Once they have major competition that isn't between one of those three companies, that is going to be the time in which you could potentially see a console crumble. And if a console crumbles, well, the studios that they have lined up in their back pocket are soon to follow. And with the studios already being, stretched for cash and closing down like THQ, you don't have to actually wonder how far it is before the entire video game industry actually crumbles. Right now, I would say it's not crumbling as of yet, but I would go so far to say that it's fragile. Right now, the worst thing that could possibly happen is for this Oculus Rift thing to really take off. That takes off, that could be potentially dangerous to the video game industry as a whole, because of how fragile it is, because of the numbskulls to which have been really riding on their own laurels. So it's not good for a lot of people in there. It's probably not good mostly for the people that create the video game systems themselves and actually support the publishers. Now, would that mean that new publishers would arise? Yes, and the problems would be temporarily fixed, and we would actually see a same cycle as something that's being repeated, to which they've already been through 100 times over, if not more. That being a slow rebirth of studios met by slow but almost certain corruption and dissension within the ranks. What I propose is that people actually pay attention to what's going on around them, so that if or when that these studios finally do fail and new ones actually pop up, that they pay attention enough to know when corruption has reared its ugly head, when people that have really just wanted to become in the movie industry and have actually just gone into the video game industry. So we see too much of that as is. And those people that are into the movies and not the video games going into the video game industry are not doing us any favors. Not to mention all the people that are into marketing going into the decision making of the process of the creation of games. When you have marketers really making decisions for your video games, you have people with their thumb up their ass not really knowing what the hell they're talking about. Games are not the only issue out here. It's also business ethics. This industry, just like any other, is going to have to learn how to have some business ethics. Right now, there are certainly some companies out there that have good business ethics. I would actually label Mojang as being the one of the few companies that has really good ethics. You know, how they've handled and dealt with their downloads for Minecraft is downright respectable. Now, I can't name too many companies off the top of my head that really show a certain level of respect and a certain level of good ethics out there, outside of Bethesda, Mojang. It's just not something that I'm too aware of, and that's kind of bad. But I can name a ton of companies off the top of my head that practice in questionable business ethics. That's no trouble at all. I actually find people that do a whole bunch of questionable decisions. Good decisions, that's hard to find. And it's hard to find because people within these businesses are, I'm not going to say that everyone's corrupt. I can't say that. Certainly the people making decisions are. They are definitely corrupt. The people to whom that usually don't have any power within the company are usually the people that love making video games. Fine, I have no problem with them. Who I have problem with is who they're employed by. Now, I'm not one to say that you're not ever going to have a bad boss or a bad employer, and I've had a few, but the interests to which you actually work for need to have some form of balance. Okay, there's a difference between just being a dick and being corrupt. I would not be so mindful as to ignore that. I just kind of wish they were more mindful to actually acknowledge the fact that what they're doing is harmful. I don't have many problems to the video game industry as a whole. It's just certain aspects of it to which I actually view as being potentially harmful. The usage and implementation of D.L.C and DRM being among them. But what the problem is that most people actually look at is the fact that these are symptoms of a cause, no symptoms of a problem, rather than just a problem themselves. I agree that the D.L.C and DRM definitely cause problems with themselves, but in the larger frame of the scope of the bigger picture is that it's simply a symptom. If you have people to whom don't care about an industry, they don't care about their clients, then they're not going to really listen to you. Now, I don't see too many ways around this. I mean, you can yell and scream and bark and complain and attempt to boycott all you want, but at the end of the day, it's not really going to have any lasting effect unless you keep hold with your ideals. Now, I simply went along into the D.L.C thinking, okay, maybe these are main characters with a small portion of it. That just wasn't the case. Instead, it was all content that should have been included into the game. Video games themselves are not alone to bad conduct or misconduct within the production of certain copyrights or intellectual properties. However, it is a pressing concern. How we treat one form of property gives us a clue as to how we treat other intellectual forms of property. Now, I actually don't think it should be treated any differently. You should treat movies the same way you treat video games within business ethics. And unfortunately, they're not, which means someone somewhere is making a questionable decision. And unfortunately, the people to whom are caught in the middle is anyone that actually puts any real finances into paying for said entertainment. At the end of the day, if you do something that is so completely and utterly, just utterly immoral and unethical, you're not only ruining your business, you're also ruining the chance for repeat business. It's not just about wasting people's time, wasting people's money, which I would agree is a huge part of it. It's also about pissing people off. People got pissed off for Mass Effect, in my opinion, for the wrong reasons. People got pissed off just because of the ending. I think people should have gotten pissed off because the video game, and the video games was essentially hacked into pieces for his substantial entertainment purposes. I mean, if you didn't play the DLC, then you really did lose out on that content, and you lost out on the context of a lot of the gameplay aspects and narration, and also some of the actual events to which was going on within the game. You don't get that kind of problem with books. You don't get that kind of problem with movies. Well, maybe bad movies, but... And even then, you actually get a whole bunch of warnings of people actually saying anything. And the only thing people actually referred to or mentioned was the ending. Wake the fuck up, people. They screwed up so much. It's not just Mass Effect. It happens with other games all the time. D.L.C. and DRM is essentially nothing more than a complete massacre of intellectual property. It's essentially the same thing as someone taking a Van Gogh, ripping out the center of it, so that you only have the top and the bottom portion of the original art piece, and saying enjoy, and then trying to charge you for the rest of the destroyed art. Some people will pay for it. Some people won't. Anyone that really wants to enjoy it will end up paying for it. And then they'll feel burned afterwards. And that's essentially where I'm at. I paid for the DLC, to which I probably shouldn't have. And I feel burned because it was a huge part of the video game. And that's not an appropriate portion for the game itself. It was so inappropriate. I had to make this video. I apologize for its length. I really do. But everything that I've said had to be said. If I see something that's wrong, I'm going to speak up. If I think I'm being taken advantage of as a video gamer, I'll say something. I don't think this video is ever going to have any lasting effect. If anything, the absolute most I would expect this to actually have is for people to re-examine those games and re-examine other games and see if the problem is somewhat as systematic as I think it is. But mostly just to kind of wake up and pay attention to what's going around them. Because, in all honesty, if you're not awake and paying attention to all the problems to which is possibly going around in your community, you're not paying attention to any of the problems. And this is a major problem as far as I can tell.
Come back soon, Liara.
Oh, better to die to a thresher maw with shotgun blasting roaring rather than to play ambassadorial games with the blood of Shiaga in her veins. Off to fight since Turians can't, with diplomats instead of a Krant, but she'll be true to Tuchanka's dream and live and die a Krogan queen. For she is the Krogan queen, hurrah, hurrah for the Krogan queen, and it is a glorious thing to be the Krogan queen.